Can I call you Shane?
You can call me, yeah, absolutely.
So Shane Reeves.
Yeah.
You're Brigadier General
Yeah.
here at West Point.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're doing this.
Yeah, I'm excited to be part of it. This was set up by a friend of ours, and I was like, this sounds like a really cool experience. So
yeah.
I'm glad to be able to be here with you.
Yeah, 𝐁𝐫𝐽𝐶𝐝.
Yeah.
𝐁𝐫𝐽𝐶𝐝, CEO of Pentagon Federal Credit Union, one of the most shared episodes on the podcast, actually, from last year.
So I don't know him as the CEO of PenFed. I knew him as a major when he was here at West Point.
Yeah?
Yeah, he was actually the dean at the time's XO. And his wife, Lisa Skank, was my professor in military and constitutional law. And I got to know them through that capacity. She was my teacher. Then also I went over to their house a few times for meals. And then when I decided to apply to go to law school, James was instrumental in helping me get a letter of recommendation. Like, he really was incredibly selfless and helpful to a guy that he didn't need to help. And so I always appreciated that.
You know, I have the same relationship with him, actually. We met last year just in a common place for no particular reason, right? And we just started to talk, and we really clicked, and he's invited me to some functions, and he's just someone I look up to, and I think, when I need advice, I reach out to him.
No, he's a good one to do that with. And his wife, Lisa, has been someone I have been in contact with throughout my entire professional career. From when I was a cadet, we really enjoyed each other in class. She was a major, and again, I was a first year, which was a senior here at West Point. And she made us all go around and give nicknames to ourselves. And I said, my nickname's Sundance. And she's like, come on. I'm like, no, I don't know. I just made that up. So she called me Sundance. It still does to this day, which I truly made that up at that moment.
Yeah.
No one's ever called me Sundance since or before that.
Well, nicknames aren't supposed to be something you give yourself.
I know, but she made us go around and give nicknames.
Yeah.
So she's like, give me a nickname. I'm like, I'm Sundance Reeves. And she's like, that's a terrible nickname. That's sticking with you. I'm like, thanks.
Yeah. No, nicknames can be hit or miss. I work out with a group called F3. So it's Fitness, Fellowship, and Faith.
Okay.
And a lot of them are former military. A lot of them are Army and West Point grads. And so one guy, he drives a minivan with tinted windows. So his nickname
is... First off, that's ridiculous. You can't drive a minivan
he tried
with tinted windows.
He tried to make it cool. So he drives a minivan.
Did he jack up the back?
No.
Does he got flames painted on the side?
No, but his nickname ended up being Hostage. So, it's just, it's hit or miss with that kind of stuff. Mine's is Pep Talk, but
your nickname is?
Yeah.
By the way, I don't have a nickname. Only with Lisa Skank is it Sundance. That's
okay.
it.
Sundance. Well, I'm going to call you Sundance for the rest of the.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it.
Since nobody else is. We were talking before we started, and were you born in Virginia? Because I'm from Virginia.
I was born in McLean.
Yeah, but you grew up in Wyoming.
I did. So when I was 2, my family moved to Rock Springs, Wyoming. So my mom and my dad was a military brat. And so my grandfather retired from the military in 1965 and was at the Pentagon when he did. My mom's dad and mom, they eventually got divorced, but he worked for Rand Corporation. And so my mom and my dad met in high school. And then they got married. And my dad went to Salt Lake for a job and ended up in Rock Springs, Wyoming, which nobody knows where Rock Springs, Wyoming is. It's in the southwest corner of Wyoming. And so then my mom moved out there, and she tells a great story that when she moved there in June of 1976, so I was 2, it was snowing, and she started crying. She's like, this is terrible. And I said, Mom, how long did it take for Wyoming to grow on you? She's like, about a decade, maybe a decade and a half. But now she'll never leave Wyoming.
She's still there now?
Yeah, she lives in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Yeah.
Yeah, how often do you get back there?
I go there not as often as I'd like, but I go I try to go at least once a year, but I like to go back to Wyoming. Wyoming's got a very different feel than almost anywhere else in the country. It's got it's very sparse. There's not a lot of people. It's still got a ruggedness to it. And more than any other thing in the world, people value privacy, which I really, really like.
Yeah. Do you have brothers and sisters?
I do. I have my older sister lives in Cheyenne. And then my younger brother, who's a West Point graduated in 2003, and he got hurt in Iraq. Okay. And he's fine. He was injured pretty bad, but then he got out of the Army due to the injuries, and now he works for General Electric in Schenectady, New York.
Yeah. So you come from a military family. You said your dad was in the military.
No, my grandfather. My dad was not in the military. No, my dad actually, interestingly, so my great-grandfather came to West Point, graduated in 1892. Then I had 3 great uncles that came to West Point, 2 of them in the 20s, one in 1937, then my grandfather in 1939. And then my dad, a lot of expectations were for him to come to West Point and go into the Army, and he went a different path. He joined a band and moved to Hawaii. And
really?
And then eventually he did a number of things, and he ended up being the general manager of a radio station in Wyoming.
What was the name of the band?
I don't know the name of his
No?
band, actually. I have no idea.
Does he still like to jam? Like,
No, my dad's passed away,
Okay.
and he couldn't play an instrument. I'm like, that's really a bad career choice, Dad. He was like, I was going to be the singer. I'm like, you have a terrible voice, just so you know.
So, and then did you feel any kind of pressure growing up
No.
that you had to be in?
No, I didn't. I just admired my grandfather. So my grandfather, again, class 1939, and then my grandmother was a military brat. Also, her dad was a Army doctor, and so I just loved visiting them. And they lived in Tucson, Arizona at the time, and I'd go visit, and I just loved the stories about his career and all the exotic places they lived. They lived in Japan. They lived in Naples, Italy. He worked for NATO. I won't deny that his war stories, which he didn't tell a lot of, but he was at the Battle of the Bulge, and he was on D-Day, and he was in the liberation of many of the concentration camps. And then after the European theater, he only went home for 90 days and moved to the Pacific. And then just him and his brothers, all of them had fought in World War II, and just being around them, and then just hearing some of it just seemed like romantic to me, the places that they got to move and live. And then they had which a lot of military families do. They have what I would call relics of places they had been and seen. And I just always was really taken by that and thought this would be a really neat life. And then of course my grandfather, more than anything, had certain virtues that I admired. I mean, he was an incredibly selfless man, very, very humble, and more importantly, just a kind man, just very, very kind. And so those things, and I would ask him, why, tell me some of your life experiences. What did you do? And he just would constantly talk about the people he had the opportunities to be around certain people in the military, the chance to lead people, and all of those things just resonated with me.
Yeah, I mean that's a big part of why I wanted to talk to you about your experience. Did you find those things when you came to the United States military?
Yeah, I did. So when I came to West Point almost exclusively because of the influence of my grandfather, and my parents were very supportive.
What if you wanted to go to the Navy or something?
I can't even think about that.
No?
They
got boats. I mean, it's fun there at the beach.
Yeah, that's just wouldn't happen for me.
Yeah, Air Force, nothing like you kind of.
No, I was coming to West Point. Okay. I was coming to West Point, or I was. I know this is foolish. I only applied to one college, which is West Point. Well, you hear people say this all the time. That was actually me, but it wasn't like I was a for sure thing getting into West Point. I didn't find out till April. I have no idea what my plan was if I didn't get in. I really don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, what if you didn't get in?
No, I don't know.
It wasn't a guarantee.
I guess I was hanging out in Rock Springs, Wyoming for a while.
Yeah, it's actually, I mean, this university is a very competitive.
Yeah, it's consistently ranked in, it's right now ranked as the second best public liberal arts college in the country. We compete at the highest levels with a lot of peer institutions, and we see our peers really as the top tier. Either the Ivy Leagues or a lot of the top tier private and public institutions in the country. And there's a lot of data to support that. I mean, just this year we had 4 Rhodes Scholars, which ties us with Harvard for first in the country. Just from a data perspective, we are very, very competitive. But more importantly, it's what I really appreciate about West Point is I think, and of course I'm biased, but it doesn't mean I'm wrong, that is the best holistic education that a young person can get, because they don't just get the broad liberal arts education that's provided at the academy. They also learn how to do certain life skills. They learn how to deal with peers and lead peers. They learned how to deal with adversity through being physically challenged. They get developed both ethically and morally, and underlying all of it is the emphasis on developing someone's character. And when you put all that together, I think that when you drop a West Pointer into a group of people, they rise. They rise to the top, and a lot of that's because we are unabashedly emphasize things like winning matters, and it's okay to compete, but compete in a positive way. Compete in such a way that you're not. It's not a finite pool or a finite pie of you win and that person loses. You can be happy for someone else to win, but you should be able to push yourself at the same time.
It's not a zero-sum game.
It is not a zero-sum game, and that is the secret of the U.S. Army, in my opinion. It's one of the things that has attracted me to the Army my entire life, is that it's very counterculture in this regard. It is not about self-promotion. It's not about looking out for yourself. In fact, the culture in the United States Army is you don't talk about yourself. You let others talk about you, but if you talk about yourself, it's probably going to result in you not doing well in the Army. The Army is very much about humble, selfless service, and you do whatever the nation needs. And that might mean you don't go to a place that you want. You might not get you might not get the assignment, the branch, whatever. It doesn't matter. All that matters is you're serving those beside you. You're serving the Army, the nation.
Yeah, I've interviewed a few special operations, and they call themselves the quiet professionals, and that's just kind of their motto. They don't talk about themselves. They don't talk about the skills they have, and even when they exit, the transitioning folks seem to have some trouble because they have this idea that they need to go get the next certification or go get some sort of external thing to prove that they're good enough to get some of the positions that are available. But a lot of what you just talked about is those innate leadership skills that are built in each individual here based on just their experience being here. What are some of those, let's talk about that. What are some of those things that you think that you learned being here at West Point that you may not have otherwise been exposed to, or that you just look back and you're just grateful for?
First thing that comes to mind is there's always someone better than you at something. So again, coming from a small town in Wyoming, and I loved my experience growing up. I'm a talker. I get to know people, and so in Wyoming, I felt like I knew everybody, and I had been successful in high school, and so there's a bit of the big fish, small pond. You get to West Point, and my first roommate was who's still one of my very best friends in the world. His name's Mike Beckwith. He's currently an assistant U.S. attorney in Sacramento. But I roomed with Mike, and Mike grew up in Northern Virginia, went to Langley High School, and he was good at everything. Really? He was well beyond me academically. He could go over and do 20 pull-ups. He could go ski. He could go ski Colbert, shoot at Jackson Hole without a problem, which is a top 20 shoot. He took up diving his senior year just because he thought it'd be fun, and he does well. I mean, and I was just like, this is awesome. I like having these people around me. And that's one of the things you learn at West Point very quickly is that there's someone better than you at something and everything. And so that I learned that very quickly, which is it's build the team versus focus on self.
Yeah. Did that make you feel vulnerable in any kind of way? Like maybe I'm not good enough or they're better than me somehow? Or
I never felt that way.
No.
Honestly, it's just not, but that's just, to be honest, no. I just would look at them and be like, I'm not going to run as fast as you, right? So it's just, and I was okay with that.
Did you play team sports and stuff growing up too?
Yeah, I played football and baseball all the way through my senior year of high school.
Yeah, so I think, what I found is the more I talk to people when they do some sort of, and it doesn't have to be sports, sometimes it's playing an instrument, but when they have some sort of discipline from an early age, it kind of helps us right-size our ego a little bit. It's not necessarily that we're bad or that we're not good. It's just that person may have been doing it longer than we have. They may be practicing more than we have. They may have some sort of innate ability. Yeah. But that doesn't, again, it's not a zero-sum game. That doesn't take away the opportunity for me to do well at something.
Yeah, I've never felt that way. The Army's a big organization. It's got, it ebbs and flows, but currently roughly 500,000 people in it. And the talent in the organization is immense. I mean, it's one of the beautiful parts about being at West Point is the amount of talent that is around. It makes the only thing you just got to make sure you don't screw it up. Like you take someone that's really talented and you say, here's your left and right limits and go, and they amaze you. They just do amazing things. And so I would much rather be part of an organization where I have that type of talent than an organization where it's all about a person or something like that.
Yeah, but when you're developing as a leader, you're not going to be good at stuff along the way or right away.
I was terrible at lots of things.
Yeah.
Trust me.
But so like for me, right? I have this internal voice. He sounds exactly like me.
Yeah.
He speaks, and he's talking to me, and he's not always nice. He's like, you look fat in those pants. I don't know why you wore that shirt. Like, it's like, you're kind of dumb. Like last time, don't you remember because I remember all the things that I've done poorly. And if I'm not careful, I can run away with that voice.
Yeah.
And that voice can, the way we speak to our kids ends up being their internal voice. The way we speak to ourselves. What I didn't realize was that, so I started to do these affirmations, these I am statements, these positive things that I would say to myself, making eye contact in the mirror on purpose. And I was building those synapses. And I was suggested to do that by some people that I trusted, and it helped, right? It helped change that internal narrative. What I didn't realize is that I was actually giving myself negative affirmations all the time.
That's interesting.
Phillip, you're an idiot, you fat piece of whatever. Like, that kind of stuff. did you ever experience that, or does the Army kind of help you understand, look, you're a human being, you're going to have that, here's how you overcome that, or what do you do about that?
I have been extremely fortunate my entire time in the military to have leaders that have been very concerned with my development, that will tell me things in a certain way that is a criticism, but it's not overly critical. And so I've had, and again, I just think I've been very fortunate, because every leader I've ever had is like, hey, Shane, you're doing great this, and this, and this. You need to work on this. And I'd be like, okay, that makes sense. And as long as there was an explanation behind why I needed to work on something, then I'm fine with it. I have never had it might be a flaw. I'm not real introspective in that way, where I sit there and think like, I need to do this, I need to do that. I just sit there and be like, that didn't work. Time to move on. All right, I got to move on to this thing.
I'll trade it out any day.
Yeah.
I spend way too. I mean, like if I could.
It's actually, I think that's a nice trait of yours. Like
overthinking.
No, it's not overthinking. That you're willing to recognize a weakness. And I don't know if I have many weaknesses. As a matter of fact, I have so many. I think that it might be too hard to try to capture all of them. So
what do you do about that? Like, do you? I mean, so a lot of people have different opinions. They focus on their strengths and they find people to fill their gaps.
I don't know. Yes. There's two thoughts on that. One is, learned this at West Point. My team leader one time told me, when I was admiring someone's greatness, he was like, listen, dude, everyone puts their pants on one leg at a time. No one's really as great as you think they are. That really resonated with me.
Yeah.
Everybody has got their flaws and their virtues and their flaws. And so humans are humans. And I just have come to the conclusion that if I'm not willing to step into the breach and lead, then who will? Because nobody's really that prepared.
Right.
Nobody actually is prepared as they, even if they fake it, there's many things where they're like, in the back of their mind, are like, let's see how this goes.
Yeah.
In terms of how I compliment, I do have a very expansive mentorship.
How many mentors do you have?
I couldn't even put a number on it. I just have, because I'm a talker, and so I oftentimes will call many people to ask them their opinions on a particular thing, and I'll get various opinions from people I consider wise. And it might be someone in the military, could be my mom. Obviously my wife is my closest confidant. My brother. I mean, I have a huge spectrum of people, and I do think the one thing I did have a short stint, just a little over a year in at Joint Special Operations Command. I learned so many things there, but one of the things that why I loved it there, and I think I was successful in that job, is because it matched how I view the world already, which is, I don't think rank or position equates to talent. I think you can have a captain and you can have a colonel, and the captain might have a better idea, or the captain might have a better instinct on a certain thing. And now, I don't downplay experience. I do think that, especially in our contemporary society, it's oftentimes confused. Access to information means I have experience. I can Google an answer, but that doesn't mean. This happens with cadets. Cadets oftentimes will be like, well, sir, if you're in combat, this is how you would have to advise a commander on this target. And you'd be like, have you been there? No, then it's a little bit different than you think. But so I think it's very important not to confuse access to information with wisdom, and wisdom comes typically through experience. But that also doesn't mean we should not listen to someone who's immensely talented, who happens to be 25 years old or whatever.
Yeah. Have you always been that way, to ask for help and to look for the answer?
I have.
Yeah, I had to get taught that if they have what you want, do what they do.
Yeah.
Right. And to ask for the help, people will give you advice. And I have mentors that they don't even know they're my mentor. They're just people that I call. Yeah. Is that how your relationships are usually?
I think so. I'm not sure if they know I'm the mentee and they're the mentor, but I do. I just call them out of the blue, and I'll be like, "What do you think of this?" Or how do you what's your thoughts on this particular issue? And most times it's because I had some sort of positive interaction with them in some situation. I'm like, they're pretty smart. I'd like to hear what they say.
Or they felt like in some way they had what you wanted, right?
I think though there is a skill I've had to learn, because one of the things that definitely drives me, and I hadn't really thought about it till I was thinking about this yesterday, is I do not like disappointing people, right? Which maybe that's because I'm a middle child. I don't know. So you do have to learn. As I've grown and I've matured, I've learned to say, listen to advice from lots of different mentors, but it doesn't mean I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
I just like to hear all sides of an argument, but being able to say, all right, thanks, I'm not going to do that. Like being able to say no to a mentor or to a group of people, especially if someone's got a really passionate view on a topic and be able to be like, no, I don't think so, but staying objective and then present evidence to explain why you're taking a different path. And I have found that with my mentors in particular, they're fine with that. They're like, yeah, this is just my thought on it. You're going to do what you want to do. Yeah. But that was actually hard. As a young person, it's hard to say no to someone who you really look up to. And they go, you need to do this. And you're like, I don't want to do that. I don't think that's the right answer.
Yeah. And are all of your people that you look to for advice, are they all within the military, or do you have like outside of the military?
No, I have outside of the military.
Yeah, diversity of thought. Just like, who knows? Right?
I do. I have it's one of the great benefits of being at West Point. You have your foot both in the military, as an officer. There's a lot of practitioners and operators that I know, but I also have a foot in academia, so I know a lot of college professors, and I'm a lawyer as my background, so I know a lot of lawyers, and lawyers are very, very good at arguing. So whatever I say, they're going to give me the counter argument,
right,
which is very helpful. I like that.
Yeah. How much of that, like your mindset and your methodology, do you attribute to actually being an attorney?
A lot. I think it's an immense amount. I think that that coupled with experience of advising commanders at multiple levels has taught me to try to be dispassionate and objective when coming to making a decision, which isn't always the case. Secretly in my head, I have strong views on something, but I really, really value hearing all of the potential options, and I don't want to ever preclude someone from saying, "Well, have you thought about this?" And so a lot of times, as a lawyer, what you're trying to do is you have to be able to argue the other side so that you can counteract that argument. So I like when you advocate, you think about what the person that's going to advocate against you is going to say, and then you can preempt their arguments with your own. And so I think being a lawyer, and I think law school taught me to think a certain way, which is to think like a contrarian, basically red cell a lot of things that I'm trying to do, think through all of the secondary and tertiary effects of what's going to happen, and then come up with a dispassionate, evidence-based approach to problem solving.
What's red cell?
Red cell is like, you say everybody is like, this is the right idea. You have everyone's like, this is it. And then you go, where's the person who says this isn't the good idea? And so the red cell is oftentimes in the military in different formations. They'll have just a small group, then they can be called red cell, they can be called something else. And their one exclusive job is to argue against the consensus course of action.
Yeah, just to have a different opinion.
Just to be like, no, you're not thinking about this, and this. Right. And we do that. Now that was learned I found the value of that as a young officer, because we would do a lot of war gaming. And so when I was an armor officer and I was at Fort Irwin, California, I had the great opportunity to work for General McMaster, who was a major at the time, and I knew him from West Point, and he was really good at this. We'd war game, and then he would get some smart people on the other side of the table, and they would be like, they would counteract. And so you would think through all the permutations before you went into the field and actually did something.
Yeah, get us out of that tunnel vision.
Yeah.
That's just for any normal person who isn't like doing a war game or something. Like if we're only thinking about something through our lens with our own perception based on our own experience, well, that's kind of a selfish approach. And there may be something just slightly different from that we're not seeing, right? It has to be this way.
Yeah, and that's the value of the academic program at West Point, because West Point has, every cadet will take 40 courses, but 24 of those are called the core course, and it's a crown jewel of West Point. It is 24 courses that range between science, technology, engineering, math, but also the humanities, and it gives them this broad perspective on a lot of different disciplines so that they have this intellectual foundation so they can hopefully not have a tunnel vision when they're confronted with a particular problem. And it's one of the things I think that separates the U.S. military's officers from all other officers in the world, is that we expect our officers to be able to function in a military hierarchy, yet be able to think critically and be sophisticated in their thinking, to think outside the box, to think of creatively, be a bit innovative and entrepreneurial in how they approach problem solving. And that comes really through having a really rigorous academic program, which it's critical. And this is the other thing I think, as being a lawyer, I'm very comfortable with, is there is no idea we don't talk about. There's no topic that we won't talk about, because I trust the cadets, and the cadets trust me, they're critical enough to be like, that's a stupid idea. Well, why is it stupid? And we go back and forth. But it's important that we don't intellectually coddle cadets, so that when they do get put into their golden moment, when they get put into that situation, and they're leading soldiers in combat, that they have the ability to outthink whatever the problem is in front of them.
Yeah, we grow through adversity, both physically, mentally, spiritually.
Yes.
That's just you're giving them an academic reason to grow through adversity too. They have to prove their point. They have to fight for what they think is right and be willing to accept that they could be wrong.
And here's the secret. The thing is, though, is that in doing that, we expect the cadets and we expect officers in the Army to be able to do this. They should be able to power through that adversity, and intellectually it often means someone is counteracting an idea you have. But we expect them to do it in a civil and a professional way, because we can have different views on a topic. We can have different beliefs, but it doesn't mean that we aren't going to work together as a team. It doesn't mean you're evil because you and I have different views on something. Right. And so for the young officer, they have to understand they're going to be leading groups of young men and women who come from all over the world, from all types of different backgrounds, socioeconomic, racial, gender, sexual orientation, whatever it might be. And they're going to have to be able to build that team so that they can fight as one cohesive unit. And so to do that, they have to be able to accept varying views. That doesn't mean they have to believe them, but they have to be able to be respectful enough to understand what those views are, and then not take it too serious if someone disagrees with you.
Yeah, you used the word dispassionate a little while ago, and I really like that. I think taking the passion out of what you're talking about, right?
It's easier said than done, right?
Yeah.
Like especially if you get into especially
because we're humans.
Yeah.
And when someone challenges our idea, it's easy to feel like they're challenging us as a person.
Yes.
Because I believe this. Just because I happen to believe it doesn't make it right or true.
It's true.
It's
true.
I thought I was the world's worst person in the world at times, right? That's not true. I haven't even committed any murders.
I tell cadets this. I say, listen, don't ever start a sentence with "I think," and I go, "Who cares? I don't care. No one cares about how you feel. You need to start the sentence with, so, my esteemed colleague, in some sort of respectful way, and say, here is actually a better approach, and here's why. Like, lay out the evidence. If you can't lay out the evidence, and your subjective opinion, or if your feelings get hurt, I'm sorry, that's not the way the world works. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah. And you develop that and then you're able to actually function without, I think people are becoming a little bit maybe too sensitive. I don't know if that's an accurate statement or not, but so you could have practiced law anywhere. Mm-hmm. Why'd you stay here?
I might flip it, and I'm like, I can't imagine practicing law anywhere else. I think it's what internally motivates us. What are like the internal and external factors that drive a person? So for me, I came in the Army as an armor officer, which I loved. And when I was a cadet, I had no idea what I was going to do. So an armor officer is basically we deal with tanks. And when I was a cadet, my friend Mike Beckwith's dad took me to lunch one day at the Thayer, and we're sitting there, and he's like, "Shane, what are you going to branch?" I'm like, "I don't know." And he's like, "What do you mean you don't know? You came in the Army. You got to figure out a branch." I'm like, "I haven't really thought about it." And he's like, "This is terrible. You need to think about it." I was probably 20. And he's like, "Okay." And he was a retired armor officer, and he was like, "You need to go into the armor branch." I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "Because they don't take themselves too seriously, but they like to fight and win, but they're a little bit more cavalier. They like to read history." And I'm like, "That sounds pretty awesome." So I went to the armor branch, and I loved it. But as a armor officer, I learned all these different skills, but I knew I wanted to go to graduate school. And it was either coming back here and teaching in the history department because I loved history, or I thought maybe I would go to law school. And so I applied for a program called the Funded Legal Education Program, which is an awesome program that the Army provides officers that would like to pursue a career in the law. And basically, if you're selected, they will send you to law school and pay for it, but you accrue a service obligation of 6 years after law school. And so my wife and I had a conversation about, do we stay in the Army, do we not? And we just love the Army. And it's hard to explain all the things we love about the Army, but it comes down to simply this: the people. I mean, you're not going to find better people than in the U.S. Army. You are truly not going to find people that are driven by things like, which oftentimes are cliches in some circles, but values. Like, I mean, the values of the Army: loyalty and duty and respect and selfless service and honor and integrity and personal courage. That actually is what motivates people to serve. And I like being in that culture where people are driven by a values-based organization. And so that inspired me to say, I think I want to stay in the military for a career. And so my wife and I both agreed that I should try to apply for this program and stay in the Army as a lawyer versus either getting out of the Army and becoming a lawyer in the private sector, which is, there's some amazing opportunities there, and I would never dissuade someone from doing that if that's what you want to do. But for me, it was being in the Army and having the opportunity to practice law in the Army was just too good of an opportunity to pass up. And I think my armor experience was informative because I really liked being around soldiers and I liked being around commanders. And so I pursued a very niche area in the law, which probably has no translation in the civilian sector. Like if you need to start a war or you need to stop a war, you need to know what you can do during war. I'm your lawyer. If you need to have your will done or a contract done in your house, don't come to me, right? I'm a bad lawyer. And so just that opportunity to pursue a niche of that type of law, which is international and operational law, and advise commanders at the tactical, operational, strategic level it's been a dream come true.
Yeah. Well, look, I feel like I have so many questions for you, and I can sit here and talk to you all day.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that I ask you this one question that I ask everybody that's been on the show.
Yeah.
And it's about a jumping off point. I call it the jumping off point. And it is a moment in time where you can no longer continue doing what you're doing, but you may be uncertain of what to do next. And for a lot of people, they've talked to me and they've said it's, in my own experience, at the time, it was horrible. I felt like this is the worst thing in the world. I can't believe this is happening. It felt like life was over. For me, it almost was, right?
Yeah.
You know, it was when I got sober 7 years ago, and I was at this crossroads. I was a little bit homeless, kind of, sort of, but not really. There was a suicide attempt that I ended up postponing to watch this Law and Order season finale. It's like a whole thing, right? But at the time all of this is happening, it was the worst thing in the world. But I look back on that moment, and that was some of the most grateful. I'm so grateful for that, because had that not happened, it wouldn't have put me on the path that I'm on now, to meet the people that I have, to have the thoughts, the ideas, the new beliefs that I have, the new people in my life, the relationships, the opportunities. So what is that for you? Everyone seems to have something, like a moment where they can't keep doing what they're doing. They don't know what to do next. Doesn't have to be as dramatic as mine.
Yeah.
But what's that for you?
So it's interesting. I have an old boss, wonderful man named Bob Tietzel, who was he was called the staff judge advocate, but my supervisor at Fort Riley, Kansas. And he was at the tail end of his military career. He was around the year 27, 28, and he was going to retire at 30. And I remember sitting down just having a conversation with him one day where he said, "Hey, Shane, I'm going to tell you, the military is to some extent a young person's game, right? I mean, you're an old man if you're in the Army at 25 or 30 years." And he's totally right, by the way. And he said, so if you get out of the Army at 5 years, 20 years, 30 years, any of those, you're going to have a bit of an adjustment. It's, a bit of a midlife crisis to try to figure out what you're going to do. And so, do I think I have a jumping off point? I think the answer is yeah. I think it's right after I leave the military, but it doesn't concern me. I've never been worried about those things. Like, I haven't ever been like, what am I doing next? It's not my natural state. My natural state is, let me do a great job now in what I'm doing, because this is such a cool experience. It's such an opportunity to lead now. But what I do know is that whatever I do next, I will continue to pursue a life of service, and I want to lead. I like to lead. I like to build teams, and I like to serve. Those are the things that motivate me. And there's a lot of different capacities I think I can do that in, whether that is through volunteer service. I'm pretty active in my church. I could do things with my church. I would love to stay in the national security apparatus. And so, I mean, there's lots of different ways that you can do this. And so I just know that the intangible skills I've learned through the military will translate into whatever I do next. Now, what that is, I don't know. But I actually find that a bit exciting.
Yeah.
To me, that's exciting, the idea of like, what's next?
Is that coming up soon for you?
Oh, no. I mean, I plan on being in this job for a bit. But after that, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to do this again and get more into, I know you're married, you have kids, like the whole thing.
We could talk for hours about the state of Wyoming if you want to know.
Yeah, I'd love to.
It is nirvana. It is the absolute mecca of culture in the Rocky Mountains. Actually, that's not true. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
But that's what makes it so awesome.
Well, maybe we can get out there sometime.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for doing this with me.
Yeah. Thanks, Phillip.
Appreciate it.